Welcome.
To the joy of coding.
Hello, and welcome to episode 311 of The Joy of Coding. My name is Mike Conley. It's so good to have you here. It's 2023. We did it, everybody. We made it to the new year. This is my first episode of the year in 2023. I'm excited to get back to it. Let's see if I still remember how to do this. Let's get started, shall we? We're going to be hacking on some Firefox stuff. We'll start by taking a brief look at the agenda like we always do. A quick reminder, if this is your first time watching the stream, first of all, welcome, but no plan survives breakfast. I think I know what I want to do today. I think I know how things are going to go, but it might go pretty sideways. I don't have a whole lot, there's nothing pre-written or pre-planned. I might get stuck, sidelined, rabbit holed. Things might go wrong. We'll just deal with it as it comes. That's the whole point of this thing, is to capture software development in the raw. That's the first thing. Second thing, the agenda that we're looking at with all the fancy links and handy stuff in here is available to you. If you're watching this on Air Mozilla, it's in the details section to the left. If you're watching this on YouTube or diode.zone, it's in the video description down below. And if you're watching this on Twitch, check in the channel details for the link to the agenda. And that's a great place as well if you ever want to ask me a question. Maybe you want to submit a question about Mozilla or Firefox or open source or the code base or anything I've been working on. You can follow this link. There's a rate this episode link, which includes a section to ask me questions. And that's a great place to ask me questions if you're ever wanting to do that. That's the first thing. Second thing, did you know that there is an episode guide, a completely viewer-driven episode guide? So if you're watching this episode, I don't know, in the future, and you want to know what happened to it, whether or not I got to some interesting state or what we talked about, you can read the episode guide for this episode. The episode guide is generally written after the episode is done, so there's no episode guide for 311 yet, but there will be ones for the previous episodes. And like I said, it's completely viewer-driven. Special shout-out to Smurf D, who is probably the most prolific contributor to the episode guide. But it doesn't have to be. He doesn't have to be. If you yourself want to contribute to the episode guide as well, you can. You can just send a pull request to the repository. It's hosted on GitHub. Again, I'm pretty flexible with accepting any of your own notes, corrections, addenda, anything you want to expand on that I talked about. Just send a pull request. And if you're not sure what I mean by a pull request or a repository or GitHub or anything like that, follow the links in the agenda, because there's some guides in here to help explain what's going on. And in fact, I actually think there are some episode guides to merge in. Maybe we should do that to start real quick. To start our year. And so if we go to the episode guide, we got up to 308 in here. Let's see what's in the GitHub. We have some pull requests. Some of these are some Dependabot dependencies that got bumped. Wow, some of these, because there's not really a whole lot of scripting that goes on. Like, I've got a tool called Adzo, which I haven't used in a long time, written in Python. But some of these might be used to generate the site, and we might want to bump some of those dependencies. I'll do that later. Actually, I'll do those right now. Let's just bump these. I'm usually just like, let's do it whenever it comes to bumping dependencies. Yeah, let's do it. And we'll bump this one as well. I don't think I've ever really had problems or dealt with issues. Couldn't merge. Reload the page. Oh, I'm probably trying to do it all at once. It was probably upset with the fact that I'd done one right after the other. It's like, oh, hold on a second, your package file has got too many changes. I think there was one time when I merged in a Dependabot update with the theme for the Joy of Coding episode guide, and that broke some things, and we had to dig into it. I think there's an episode probably in the 200, somewhere in the 200s, where we dug into what was going on there. But I usually just go for it, and hopefully the episode guide isn't critical enough for me to do deep dives into what exactly are in these dot releases. I just do it. Let's take a look at 309. So 309, this is from Smurf D. If you've never seen me review one of these before, it's pretty straightforward. I don't do a whole lot of like I'm pretty flexible about what I accept, but I just make sure that the dates are correct. So in this case, it was the 11th month. That's November the November the 30th. Was that right? Yeah, episode 309 was November the 30th. And the links look right. Let's actually make sure, because I remember there were some broken links at one point. Let's make sure that that still directs properly. That looks right. Details 309. Yeah. That link looks right. And we talked about the migrator reusable component infrastructure. A lot of that has actually been landed, the migrator wizard reusable components, which I'm pretty happy about. And we started hacking on jump lists again. I think this was the episode where things went like super wrong. Like I think the episode I ended up ending it early because my network started to fall over. So, you know, shout out to my network. Quick shout out to my home network for falling over that time. I got some green screen glitches. Yeah, there was a question about web GPU, and I did my best to answer it. I wonder where that's at out of curiosity now. Has there been more activity? The meta is still open, but there was some activity about 7 days ago where it looks like Kelsey and Jim are working on this. So yeah, actively working on web GPU. And then there was no episode the week after. Okay, that episode guide looks good. Let's merge it in. Let's do it. Thank you, Smurf D, as usual. Thanks. And let's look at 310. Oh, there's another Dependabot bump. Let's just do it. It's all the updates today. Nokogiri getting all these dependencies. Like, yeah, all right, what was in the release notes? Security stuff and some improvements. Something. Doesn't matter. It's the episode guide. Let's just do it. And if things break, well, we'll figure it out. That's how things happen with the episode guide. For the episode guide 310, it was on December 21st. Is that right? That sounds right. Yep. And then, again, I just want to double check these redirections. Aha, that's a broken one. I'm going to have to talk to Andy about that. Hang on one sec. Okay, so we'll get that fixed. Episode 310, that's the right link. What did we talk about? I talked about Mastodon and the Fediverse and Mozilla's announcement that we're going to start looking at the Fediverse. There was something about a time stamp to future Mike Jumpless message. I'm going to have to check that out in a second. See what you're talking about, nerd bloke. I'm excited. A message for myself from the past passed through as someone in Matrix. And we did some more jump list stuff. I think we actually got quite a bit further. I need to actually watch the video to see where we got to, because I haven't touched it since this episode. So, and that was like, when was this? This was just under a month ago. Just shy of a month ago is when I was working on this stuff last. So a lot of it's been, to use a computer phrase, swapped out of my brain. So I'm going to have to quickly skim through the video to see where we got to. And then I talked about Dolores. If you're a fan of point-and-click adventure games, you probably want to check out this video. It was like my year-end fun video to do something interesting. And we talked a little bit about Dolores and point-and-click adventure game engines. And then I asked... a question was asked. What is the easiest way to... Did I answer this? I may not have answered this. I'm going to put this, because I don't see an answer that was like included there. If I didn't answer it, I'm just in case, I'm going to put it here as well. Maybe I'll check to see whether or not I ever answered that when we leaf through the old video. But let's go ahead and merge that in. And then we can get our work started. Pull requests done. Episode guide updated. Let's take a look. Episode guide. Reload. We got 309. 310 will be there shortly. So pretty happy about that. We can close out 2022, and it looks like a pretty solid collection of episodes. So I did all right. Okay, so let's close all this. Let's now see what. Are you recording 311 by recapping 310? Yeah, basically. Yeah, so 310 was long enough away that I need to like remember what happened so that we can proceed. And it sounds like there was like
We stopped here.
a message to myself.
This is Mike. If you're watching this in 2023 and you're trying to figure out where to pick up, we were inside of Get Shell Link. We're trying to construct the thing that's actually going to go into basically the Win32 MS COM thing that needs to be created. And we realized that that we need to supply a name, that we need to supply a title rather for a shortcut. The title, the path, and then the description. Not just the description isn't enough. The description is separate. We need the title as well. So title, and like the title will be like open a new window. The description will be, hey, this is how you open a new window. We need those things. Okay, so let's let that build in the background.
Okay, so that was the message to myself. Thank you, myself from the past, and thank you, Nerd Bloke, for remembering that I left a message to myself. It probably would have been a lot harder for me to find that message in this, how long is this? Almost 2-hour video. So thank you for remembering, and that is very helpful. You just saved us a bunch of time.
We'll come back to it.
Did I end up answering the question? That was my next
Let's look at
thing.
Dolores.
I talked about Dolores.
That's fine.
Did I get to the
This
question?
part.
Okay, and then I went into Dolores.
So if you're not familiar with Dolores,
And then I'm just looking through the thumbnails
so
here.
Ron Gilbert
Here, I'm gonna
and his company.
mute this. Did I go back to the agenda and answer the question?
What video, if you want to, Ron make? On options showing, then we're gonna do opening.
More Dolores, more Dolores. Talk about the engine, Dinky, which someone was brilliant enough to notice that that's named after an island in the Monkey Island universe, and what a great little reference there.
Real,
Okay, I'm just gonna leave through.
something. It's almost like, I don't know. It's like going back to your roots of why you even got there. You for that's your gift to me is coding. The year's almost at a close. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, I hope you enjoy it.
Okay, I think I don't think I got to the question. So that means we're gonna try and answer this. In fact, I'm gonna answer this right now, before we get into this first thing, which I was gonna review a patch from someone, and then we're gonna get back into the Windows jump list stuff. That's the plan. Sorry it's taken me so long to sort of like get this episode together, but that's the plan. As plans go, but you know the rule. So the question is, what is the easiest way to succeed when applying an old patch? Do you bump it to tip and deal with merge conflicts? Or to handle review feedback? Is it best to apply somewhere close in the Mercurial tree where it was committed? That's a great question. So here's my opinion. The best idea, it's best if you can take advantage of the version control system's smarts when reviving an old patch. So you can almost think of a patch as just like whenever you pull down something from Fabricator, something from long ago, or if you were to think of an old commit from months ago maybe that you haven't touched, it might be tempting to think of it as just a patch, but there's more information. The critical information that is included both in Fabricator whenever we submit a patch, but within Mercurial is like, what is the parent? What is the lineage that got us to the point where that patch could be written on top of it? And one of the problems, so there is a tool called MozFab Patch, just uses the patch command under the hood to apply the patch directly whenever you use apply to here. So I often use apply to here because I gamble. What MozFab Patch does is it allows you to grab a patch on Fabricator and apply it to your local tree. And whenever you say apply to here, basically it says just grab it and try and splat it on wherever I am in the tree. And usually that works if the part of the tree that I'm hacking around in isn't very, there's not been a lot of traffic. But sometimes there are conflicts because other people have made changes in that part of the code base since then. Maybe even myself, maybe I've made changes in that part of the code base since. And so it doesn't apply cleanly. So what's actually best is if you can take advantage of the version control system's smarts about the sorts of things that have changed. Because patch, like the Linux or patch command, isn't very smart. Its job is to just like look at a diff and try and inject it in the right spots. And when Mercurial or Git does a rebase, it's not just checking out a revision and applying a patch. What it does is, like when you do a rebase, it tries to look at the difference and the lineage between the base commit of the thing, of the parent, like the parent that your patch that you're rebasing is based on, and where you're trying to rebase to. It looks at what has changed between those two things and tries to bake that into how the strategy it uses to apply the patch. So I'll give you an example. Let's suppose that in your patch you touch a file called migrator.xhtml, and you made some changes in there. And they never landed. It's in an old patch, and it's sitting around. And then let's suppose that more recently, someone in, maybe even yourself, has made a change to the code base that renamed the file from migrator.xhtml to migratordialog.html and changed some lines inside of it. Now, if you were to try to take that old commit and just use the Linux patch command to apply it, it won't apply cleanly because the file that you're changing doesn't exist anymore. It was renamed. And patch doesn't know that because that information is not baked into the raw diff. But Mercurial, or Git if you're using that, does know that the file got renamed between those two things. It knows that there was a mutation. And so when you use rebase, what it will do is it will go, okay, well, the file that you were changing in the originally has been renamed, so we can just translate the commit that you wrote to apply to the changed file name. So it does that for you, and then it will try to merge the change in. Instead of like hand applying each line by line, it will attempt to merge your change into the more recent file. And sometimes it gets it right. Oftentimes I find it gets it right, unless it's really unsure, if maybe lines that you were touching were changed, it will show you conflicts and you'll have to manually resolve them. But if it was just like surrounding stuff that got changed, or sometimes just white space, Mercurial and Git are smart enough to say, well, I know how to make this change happen in this file based on what you wrote before. And so what I would really recommend you do is rebase the old patch from where it was onto the tip. That will take advantage of what the VCS version control system is what I mean by VCS. Version control system or tool knows about what has happened since that commit was made. And you have a greater probability of not having conflicts when you do that. Now, you will periodically get conflicts. That's kind of unavoidable. And when you get conflicts, it's because your tool doesn't know how to resolve a certain thing, and it needs you to deal with it because it would rather you take responsibility for it rather than it make a mistake. Like, I think there are arguments you can supply saying no matter what, just try and jam what I wrote into the code. But it's best if you, especially if you're not sure, is to like hand examine those conflicts and say, okay, well, based on what's happened since that patch was written, this is how I want it to integrate into the newer thing. So ultimately, especially, I'm going to speak about Mozilla Code, for example. What I would recommend you do is you use mozfab patch to pull down a revision if you don't have it already, but don't use apply to here if it's an old one, because that will apply it to the right place in the commit tree, assuming it was originally committed and submitted on a revision that exists somewhere in your tree. It'll figure that out and apply it cleanly, and then rebase it onto central, and hopefully you'll avoid much of the conflict, or all of the conflict. So hopefully that was useful. I hope I answered your question, whoever answered that, or whoever asked that. I did my best. So now let's review a patch. This is a patch from someone who might actually be watching right now, Danny Colin, who you may know as SDK, or I think it's just Danny Colin inside of Matrix, and Danny Colin wrote this patch related to Firefox containers. If you're not familiar with containers, it's I'll show you what containers are. Let me just what do we have here? Let me pump up the font a little. That's today. Yeah, okay. Let's build. Containers, sometimes under the hood, it's called contextual identity. This is a way of having different cookie jars and identities between individual tabs. This is something that if you've ever installed the Firefox multi-account containers add-on, or you're on Nightly, you've got this button up here, or if you long press on the new tab button, you'll see like a bunch of containers that you can open. And that's pretty handy, especially if you're trying to juggle multiple identities. Maybe you've got a work identity, or a home identity, or a shopping identity, or a banking identity, for example. It's pretty handy for that. And there is a bug that was filed 6 years ago. I haven't read this at all, so I'm reading this for the first time. I'm not familiar. I haven't looked at Danny Colin's patch at all. I haven't read this bug, so I'm going in cold. I'm going in completely cold. Let's see where we get. So, actually, before we do that, I'm also going to make sure that I've got both. I'm going to see if I can get I got a debug build on my Windows machine, as well as I'm going to try and get an opt build on the Windows machine as well. So maybe by the time we're done this review, that'll be done. If not, we'll just work on the debug build. That's fine. So in the original bug, it says go to About Preferences Containers in Nightly. Because in Nightly, I think it's all on by default. So let's try and reproduce this issue. Yeah, spoilers, says Smurf D. Yeah, we're going to get into that Windows stuff. So go to this page in Nightly. So these are the built-in containers: personal, work, banking, shopping, and add a new container and set space as the container name. There's an empty option where the unnamed container is. Maybe don't allow unnamed containers. Similarly, I have 3. So that's the bug that we can provide. We can supply containers with like no name, or the user can set one up. And so let's take a look at Danny Colin's patch here. So right away, I'm a little worried because that is an English word hard-coded into our JavaScript. I don't even know what's happening here, but like, that's the first thing I noticed is that we've got ENUS jammed in here. So we might need to deal with that. But let's take a quick look here. It's been I'm not super familiar with this part of the code base. I just kind of have to familiarize myself. So where are we? We're in a thing called Contextual Identity Service. Let's give it a quick skim. Whoopsie daisy. There we go. This is basically the manager of all the different containers. So this is the thing that you talk to if you want to add or remove a container. And these are the built-ins. These are the built-in containers that we create by default. And it looks like Danny Colon is... I'm just going to say Danny. Is altering the API endpoint create, which is for creating a new one, where you can supply a name, an icon, and a color. And what it does is in any event, whenever the user is creating an identity, it will pass in. So we bump and like create. We've got a unique user context ID that we're going to use, and this utility function does what? We're going to use a regular expression to replace any white space. We're going to replace any white space We're going to replace any white space with a space character, and then we're going to trim it. And then we say if the name is empty, and then we're going to give it a default name. That is the solution. The default name is this one. What else do we do here? And when we update, if the user has updated the name. Okay, so there's a little bit going on here. Let's take a look at is there anything in the commit message create container so that a name can get confusing? So the first thing that any extra white space between words we don't want to allow. That's the idea. Is that a thing we want to do? Like if the user types in like bada bing bada boom and like let's say can I put like a tab character in there, or what's the best way of inserting a tab character? Let's copy and paste one. How tab character. Bada bing, bada boom. So it looks like there's already work done to trim, like to, whenever it's displayed, it like contracts. Oh, because it's HTML. Any white space will get collapsed into a single space. That's how HTML works. And in here, what does that look like? Same thing. I'm not certain that we need to do this part, this regex part. I want to know more. Now, normally I'd ask that in the patch, like in my review here, but I realize that you're in the chat right now, Danny, so maybe you can answer. Is there a particular reason why we're doing that? It was visible in the address bar. It's visible in the address bar. So like, where's in the address bar? What do you mean? Like, oh, whenever I create one in the address bar. Like here? In the indicator? Is this where you mean? While I wait for that information. Oh, have I applied as patch? I have not applied as patch. So this is the current behavior. single space characters would. Let's check. Let's replace now with this. Let's put a bunch of single space characters. Okay. I don't know. It looks like all that got collapsed. I don't know. It just seems like a little bit of an edge case. So I'm going to suggest, especially because when we do character manipulation like this, I'm a little bit worried about internationalization. There are some locales, I don't know. This worries me. So what I'm going to suggest is that we don't do that part. So I'm going to write that in here. What's going on here? There we go. So it looks like this part is attempting to replace any white space, any in the string with a single space character. That seems, I'm not entirely certain. From our conversation in Matrix, this was because space characters, multiple consecutive space characters. I'm not trying to call you out here, Danny, but it is a thing I've noticed. There's multiple consecutive characters were showing up in the indicator in the URL bar. From my testing, this doesn't actually seem to be the case. The strings are white space is contracted automatically. So do we still need this? The underscore name. Function tab. What's with the underscore naming convention in this file? Let's just see here. Yeah, what's with that? I think this is some way of saying like, hey, you're not allowed to exist outside of this module, and then we do expose this one thing. It is a bit bizarre. It is a bit bizarre to add using prototype. Add an underscore there. A little bizarre, but it. Let's see. Tab style. Container tab. What I'm going to suggest. We add this as a function. Pseudo private. So keep the underline prefix. Property on the contextual, what was it? Contextual identity service class, like old school class here. In the future, if we were to convert this to an ES6 class, we could use a private method. Object, prototype object. Since I don't think it's used outside of that class. Yeah, it is an interesting, it isn't clear. You're right. I think it's not helped by the fact that this is using old school prototype class in like object definitions. This is how we used to do classes in JavaScript before ES6 classes. You'd create a function named after the class, and then you'd set up an object on the prototype of that function, and then you could do like new contextual identity service. These days, we're slowly trying to migrate away from these old school ways of doing this, and it's not just for syntactic. I mean, we get things like private members, private methods, that sort of thing from ES6 classes, which is really nice, as opposed to these like pseudo private members that are actually still accessible from outside consumers. And the underscore is, I can understand why this one got an underscore, because ultimately when you get to the bottom of this file, we instantiate a single version. This is a singleton. The service is a singleton. So we instantiate a single instance of it and expose that as the contextual identity service. And so we, having it start with an underscore kind of makes sense, so that there's not like a name collision with the instance variable that is exported. We did that more recently inside of something called migration utils. I think we did, I did something very similar at the bottom here where it's like, I did a little bit of a hack where I like instantiated it, called it migration utils singleton, and then renamed the export. So that way, ultimately, I keep the name migration utils on the class, and the thing that gets exported is also named migration utils, even though it is an instance of this class, because that's how it behaved before. And so the last thing I wanted to mention, there's some linting there. We're gonna get rid of that new line, but also this is we gotta not use hard-coded strings here. Fabricator's being super slow. My click, it's taking a while for it to respond. We need to use a Fluent string here instead of hard coding in this default name. What we can do, let's see how Fluent is used in here. L10N. Oh, I don't think it's using Fluent at all, which is unfortunate. And I'm not going to make you use Fluent, like update this to using Fluent as part of this patch. That would be mean, so I'm not going to do that. But under, what was the name of the browser locale? That's interesting. We've got this like dependency here, despite the fact that this is a toolkit module. This thing is pointed at a browser string bundle. That's the problem. Contextual user context, that's what's called, user context. What am I recommending here? We need to use localized string here instead of hard coding in this default name. Unfortunately, we're still using .properties strings in here rather than Fluent, so this makes things a little more difficult. What I recommend is adding a string here. User context. I mean, the other option, what might actually be simpler, is to just not allow this. Is to not do the default container name, is to actually not allow this. So for example, if I put in nothing, just white space, is to not allow this. Like what if we throw, what happens if we throw instead? Is this dialog set up to handle that? it does look like other places throw. So let's see what happens if we throw if the name is empty. Create. If name trim throw new error, container must have a non-empty name. I'm just gonna give it a that'll be my message for now. Okay, so empty name. Whoop, empty name. So it doesn't add it, but I think there's one other thing we need to do here, which is to make this form field like require. What is this form field? Here. Input. We can probably use like HTML5 form. If I go like required, still allows it. Was it HTML5 form validation non-empty string? How do you do it? Simple not blank pattern. Client-side form validation. When the input is empty, then always get a valid and valid UI class I would like. Validity, too short, range and valid will validate. Validation. Validity. String. See, I'm expecting. Oh, that's expecting an email address. Type email ID. Wait, how does that work? Type email. That's why. Okay. Data input. Just need non-empty. I just need like a character, and there is a way of doing that with regex, but is there like a different way? What is your favorite fruit? How does it do that? RA label required. Required pattern. Specify that we're going to pattern regular. Oh yeah, of course. Pattern. No. It's a pattern validity state. View pattern value guide release compiling. Usability, constraint validation, matching a phone number, specifying a pattern, accessibility concerns. Okay, so what is the regular expression for a alphanumeric? I think it's just like any /w, like /w. I think is the one. So if I say required and pattern equals /w plus, and I just put in the empty, it still likes it. Now what activates this too? Like I feel like that's the other thing, is like there's some logic that activates this business, this button. We shouldn't allow that to be activated. G containers manager. Okay. This is the dialog for it. Okay, so on load init, we can see what all this stuff is. Check form. Aha. Check form. Check if the name is provided. Check form. Get element by ID. Aha. Aha. Okay, so containers.js. What we can do, maybe, check form. Where am I? Preferences, dialogues, check form, name, trim. All right. So let's see what happens now if I do this. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. So now we've got two layers of this. We've got the actual contextual identity service will throw an exception if a empty string name is supplied, and the actual client of that service here is trying to do some form validation to prevent the user from actually having to experience that exception being thrown. So that is, I think, what I'm going to recommend, actually. So let's go back to our patch here. Come on, what is going on with Fabricator today? Okay, I'm going to cancel this comment. And I'm going to just write a new general comment. Thanks for the patch. Always start by thanking the contributor. What the heck? Yeah, there we go. Thanks for the patch. I'm going to recommend a slightly different approach. This will avoid us having to do heroics with dot properties strings, which are on the outs anyways, and one. So here's the thing: have contextual. What's it called? Contextual identity service. Contextual identity service. Create. Service.create. Throw if the name.trim is a falsy value. Something like if not name trim, throw new error rut row, some meaningful string. Actually, I can provide something more helpful. Contextual identity names cannot be blank, cannot be empty, or only cannot contain only white space. And then in the dialog, that's browser. Update the check form method to only return true. I think that's what it's doing. Is it returning true? Oh no, it's just setting the attribute, setting the button disable accept attribute. Only set the button disable accept attribute to false if the name element's value is non-empty after trimming. That gives us two layers of protection here. Client side in the dialog, preventing the user from accidentally providing an empty container name, and service side, where anything that programmatically attempts to supply a container with an empty name will get an exception thrown at them. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. Request changes. Submit. What? Your inline comes with say cancel. What are you talking about? Oh, just delete that inline. Fabricator, what is going on with you today? What inline comment are you... Oh, this one? Cancel. That's the one it's talking about. Alright. Submit. Booyah. So that's done. Let's go ahead and switch contexts now. We're going back to the jump list stuff. And due to the message that I sent myself to now from the past, I have some sense of what it is, like where we're at. It looks like our default opt build didn't complete. That's okay. We can just use the debug build for now. Okay, so I'm going to stop this build. Shut it all down. Shut the garbage mashers on the detention level, will you? Do you copy? Shut down all the garbage mashers on the detention level. Oh, Andy, you're the best. Already fixed the Joy of Coding Bitly link, so this one should now work for December 21st. Oh, Andy, the best. The best. All right, so let's go back to our debug build here. Let's open up Sublime. Let's not worry about that for now. Right. So I needed to add a new property, which was man, did I not check out? Did I not check out the patch? Shoot! We are not ready for this. We need... Sorry, gang. I applied the patches, but I didn't switch to them. So now I have to do the debug build again. Oh. Nasty. Nasty, nasty. Well, we can at the very least... That's a pain. We can start thinking through the things that we need to do. And then maybe we can do them. This bug is cursed. Okay, so we are providing the title now. I was wondering why it built so cleanly. We are providing the title. That was required. And I don't think anything that we've written up until now is going to require us to do anything special. Like, we'll just kind of inherit all of that good stuff. Like the description, shortcut description. Like, that's just gonna... We're gonna inherit the fact that we have a title now. Oh, yeah, I used, like, a const for the categories. I remember doing all this. And we got to the point where it's like, okay, let's build the list. And the part that's going to break is this part. Get shell link. Build the list. This should all be shell. These should all be shell links. And so this is where we were. And we have the description, the link that we want to get out. That's an out param, an IO thread. And so we need to update the... So we're passing in a new structure that getShellLink is not used to. GetShellLink. So before it was expecting this XPCOM thing, an NSI jump list item, and now it's one of our description thingies. So that changes things. We're going to have to update that. So I wonder if the simplest thing for now is to try and add a new method, a new static function here as a copy of this, and then we can edit this one, because I don't know what else uses this. Does anything else use this? Get shell link. Yeah, 2 places, but it might be within the same. Is it in the same place, like in the same method? Yeah. Okay. Okay. So maybe we're okay to just update this. So what I'll do is jump list item.h. We're going to change the signature here to accept one of our descriptions. And let's take a look at how we've done that sort of thing before. Description. Oh, I started to like create one. I created a fake one inside of, actually inside of, I already did this work inside of Jump List Builder. So there's something in here called get shell link. And, all right, I already did that. We've got our description. And then I did a bunch of heroics. Store the title of the app. App title. What's app title? I think that is where we stopped. So this build is definitely going to fail because there's a bunch in here that just is not defined. But we can start examining what we need to do here. And the first thing is that the app title originally it came from the name of this thing called the handler. But now, instead of supplying doing it this way, where we like handler app. Where's handler app come from? Handler app comes from the shortcut which is just a structure. Handler app is just a structure, and we say, okay, give me the path. Yeah, instead of doing all this stuff, it's all on this structure that we've defined. So I think what we can do is just say store the title of the app. If a desk, and I think it's just title, right? Or is it get title? I don't remember how these things work. Desk m path, so it's m title. M title. Okay. If the title is not empty, create one of these fun things, and then do that, and then app title. I think what I'm gonna do, we need a raw pointer here. I think we have to go like that. I think that'll work. And then we set the value in the prop store set value. Title to this thing. And we commit and release. Very clear. Oh, that's so weird. Okay, and then store the rest of the params. Set path. We give it a pointer to a string. Okay. A desk m path dot get a desk dot m. I think it's just description. Yeah. m description get set arguments. And what did I supply? Yeah, it's just arguments. Dot get. Now that's presuming we supplied arguments. I'm gonna assume, and we should check this, that because this is not required, this will just be the empty string, and that instead of being null, let's hope. I'm gonna have to check that, and then let's save. If we're using use URI icon, that's not a thing that's really defined. So what were we doing before? Use URI icon is true if there is a have icon page URI from the shortcut. App icon index and then an icon URI. And I think, yeah, there's an icon path. So I think what we want to do is, in the event that the icon path is not empty, if a desk m icon path, I actually think there's a better, I think there's like an empty on strings. Or is it is empty? Mozilla internal string guide is empty. If m title is empty, if not is empty. Okay, so, and then if a desk m icon path, if it's not empty, then obtain cached icon file from, now icon URI, was that a string? Icon URI was an actual NSI URI. So that's something we're going to need to, it's kind of annoying that we're turning it into a string and then just deserializing it again into an NSI URI. I will bet you we can just pass a URL, a URI across the bounds here. I think NSI URIs are thread safe now, as I recall. And no? Byte string, URL, DOM string. So it looks like okay. Never mind. We gotta parse it again. So we're gonna create a new this com pointer as create URI. Can we do that from a string? Nope, that's from a principal. New URI. Getter address URI from, yeah, this is more like it. Spec is an auto C string. So if I do this, I should be able to get a URI out. But what this is to get the file path as a string. Amazing. Okay, so we create an SI URI. We're going to say, oh, and what'd you explode about? Yeah, I thought so. It doesn't know what I mean inside of jump list builder.h. Did I mean this? I did mean that. Jump list builder. Keep a building. Okay. So we're gonna call this the icon URI, and we're gonna say icon URI, and instead of spec, we're gonna pass in a desk icon path. Let's see all instances of this. Yeah, .get. And then if NS succeeded, that's valid, then we're gonna say, okay, get me, oops, how do I do this? And there we go. Get me the cached icon file. As a string. And if that succeeds, then we're going to set used URI icon to true. Go file path get. Okay. So I guess we're going to need to set that variable up. Bool used URI icon equals false. Oh. If this is the only place where we might have used it, then I don't need this anymore. Oh, is it? Like, I'm wrong. I'm wrong. I think what I'm going to do, instead of having that Boolean, is do this first unilaterally. Set icon a desk mpath dot get, and then the icon index is also fallback icon index. We're going to say a desk m fallback icon index. Set up the fallback icon in the event that a valid icon URI has not been supplied. And then we can get rid of that Boolean. All right. And then here's our out param. Weird. Okay, so that might work. Probably not. I'd be pretty surprised if that builds. What now? What are you complaining about? Okay, we fixed that. Let's try building it now. It's 2:10, everybody. In 20 minutes, the stream will end, but I'm hoping we'll have something that at least compiles and maybe even shows some items. Because I think, if I understand correctly, we've... Oh, okay, not quite. But I think we've almost done everything we need to do to get something to show up on screen. Now, is it going to work first time? I doubt it. But we might have everything we need for the most part. And we just have to get through some silly errors. Cannot bind to a value. Okay. Easy. So the first thing is that loop on 935 over here. And it's playing non-const L value reference to jump list item. Oh, yeah, I need to Instead, I'm going to call it jump list builder. I'm being very explicit. I don't actually think you need to do that if you're in the class that the static method is defined on, but I'm being pretty explicit. And then what else? Note passing argument to parameter here. Yes. Okay. And then there was on line 994 an unexpected semicolon. Unlike an unexpected Danny colon. Worth it. Okay, hold on. Oh yeah, we need. This is just broken. Return NS error unexpected. With some luck, that's right, Smurfd. We're gonna get there. We're gonna get there. It's been so long since this series has had like that we've completed. So no member named get in option. Oh, it's an option. It's an option. So set arguments. So what we're going to do is if a desk m arguments is sum, how's that work? Is sum. If is sum in place. No, not quite. Ref. Or can I pass it? No, that's the wrapper for saying it is something. I think this is what you're supposed to do. And then there's another optional icon path. So we'll say if a desk icon path is sum, then we actually have to get the reference. Okay. Let's see what it thinks of that. Okay, still mad. I think it doesn't like my capital I. There's something on 1002 that it thinks is horribly broken, and it's right. This is also just flat out broken. I don't know why that keeps happening. 1000. I think it's just broken syntax. That's all me. Use of undeclared identifier PV. We're gonna have to fix that. Where did that come from? PV. So if we go to jump list item, PV came from prop variant here. Oh no, here it is. What are you talking about? What you talking about? On 1008. That's prop variants right there. What do you mean? Prop variant. Undeclared identifier. I wonder if it didn't notice it because of my broken syntax. Let's try again after I've fixed this is sum problem. Is sum casing. So that should be lowercase I lowercase I. Man, this is going to require a lot of cleanup when this is through. I'm going to just blow away a bunch of stuff, which I'm pretty excited about. Simplify the API, blow away a bunch of old dead code, get it off of the main thread. It's a hat trick, is what we'd say in Canada. Still doesn't... Oh, so this is a different... init. It doesn't know what init prop variant from string is. Oh, right, because I... Is that over here? Jump list item... Init prop variant from string. Is that just like a Windows thing? Yeah. Prop var util. Prop var util. I see. So I think we have to include that. Jump list builder CPP. We're gonna show API. We'll do that. And then what was the other thing? It doesn't like some of this other stuff. No member named ref in optional. Maybe I am doing this wrong. Mozilla DOM optional. Was passed and value. I see. So that's what I want. Was passed and value. Not ref. Not is some. If was passed. If it was passed and value is not equal to something else. I wonder if we need to do that. It's like was passed and empty, and it's not empty. Yeah, okay. And a desk arguments value is empty. So if it was passed and it's not empty, then do that. And then same thing. If was passed and a desk icon path to value is empty. If it's not empty, then we'll do all this work. And then instead of, we'll do that. Now that might just be, I don't know if that's right. Let's see. I might need to get like the value and then get a pointer to the value. Value.get. People do ever do that? Get as string, get as String sequence. Get as blob. I might need to do that. Undeclared identifier, P key title. What you talking about? What? Prop key. Prop key.h. I think we need that too. It is in jump list item. All right. Prop var util prop key.h. We're gonna get there, folks. I think it's gonna be. I think we're gonna be all right. But there are a couple other things here. Instead of passing just the value, can't convert from a NST string to an LPC wide string const wchar t. I think what I want to do const wchar t. I want to value. That was line 1020 here. I'm gonna say dot get. Do you like that? What do you think of that? What you think about that? Now you know how I feel. Who knows what song that is? Get that. That's right. Okay, now it's complaining about a different part. 1030. Right. So instead of... All right, we're going to do that. Are you for real? What song am I singing? Any guesses? Give you a hint. Bow, 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 bow. 1030 still hates it. 8. So it doesn't like use of undeclared identifier ns new URI. Oh, okay. I think that means we just need to like supply nsnetutil.h. Jump list item, yeah, nsnetutil.h. We're just gonna put it. We're gonna put it up in here. This is all out of order. Okay. The answer was Wannabe by the Spice Girls, which, as a 90s kid, even though at the time I wasn't really into the Spice Girls, now it's just like, oh man, my childhood. No matching function call. Couldn't convert from a char16t type to an NSAC string for the second argument. Const. So it doesn't want a pointer. I see. So that's different. It doesn't want a pointer for that one. I wonder if we go back to what we had before, or maybe I have to wrap it in one of, oh, thank you. Danny Colin, yes, I talk to my machine. I talk to my tools all the time. You know, it's like, hey, you're going to be all right, Mock. Come on, LLVM, you got this. Just positive talk to the tools. Okay, linking. Linking. Okay. Get ready, gang, for crashes. Because we're done our linking, I think. And we're finishing off this build. And then I'm going to run the debug build. And we're going to see if we can actually use the browser console to write something into the jump list. We're going to just try. And if that works, that's a great way to end the episode. We'll start cleaning it up and thinking about testing next time. Build, build, build. All right. Run. Do I have time to do this? It's almost 2:30. I've got a meeting in 30 minutes. Let's see. Let's just prove out that this thing might not crash. Or if it crashes, that will be interesting for us to deal with next week. Just because it compiled doesn't mean it's right. Looks like my Windows terminal doesn't like color escape codes. Yeah, I need to update my build. Basically, we don't have to use MingW32 anymore. We can use the Windows terminal. And I probably should switch to that. I just haven't done it yet. I'm always reluctant. This is, maybe once this particular project is done, then I'll update all of my build infrastructure on this machine. I don't like to update build infrastructure on a machine until, like, the projects on that machine have more or less been cleared. So once this is done, yeah, that's a good idea. And do we have any... No? Okay. What I want to do is pull this together. This is our handy snippet to get us access to the builder. Okay. And now, using our handy dandy populate jump list. What was it? Populate. No. Populate jump list. I'm going to just say tasks, and then we're going to pass in some descriptions. And those descriptions are going to be these things. So, builder, populate, jump, list, tasks. I'm going to pass in an array. And the first thing I'm going to supply is a title of test, followed by a path of file. What do we normally pass in? Path. Handler. Local handler app. I think I want this actually. So hold on. Before I do this part, we're going to get handler app dot executable as file services. All right, we're going to do this. Executable equals that. And handler app dot how do I, like, I can't remember. What were we doing before? We were getting the path from executable get path. You get, oh. So it's just this. This is what I need to pass. Okay. And because this is a URI and then path. Is it a string? Yes, it's a string. Okay, so we're going to use that as our path argument. Builder, populate, jump list tasks. I'm just going to pass in a single item, title, test, path, this. I want everyone to set their expectations. This might just blow up in our faces. This might not work, but that's okay. What else is required? A description. I'm just going to put in. I'm not going to put in everything. I'm just going to put in a description. Here's Johnny, and then fallback icon index 0. Let's see what happens. So our current jump list has these things in it. Failure. Awesome. So we got something. We got something to happen. Found a description. But we failed somewhere. And now we need to figure out where. You know what? I'm curious enough that let's figure this out. The parent process is 14640. And then let's set a breakpoint. What does this play? Jump list builder. Mozilla widget jump list builder. And then it's called populate do populate jump list. All right. Where are we? Here we are. Let's go. We're going to assert we're on the main thread, or not on the main thread. Okay. Getting a lock. We're going to see if we're building. No. We're going to try and get. Okay. We dumped out the path. Yep, that looks right. Start and get a collection. We're going to create an instance for each. We're going to get shell link. Let's go. Create an instance. If the title is empty, if not empty, we're going to do this. Get prop variant. Okay, okay, done. Next, set the paths and do that. Here's Johnny. Okay, if an argument was passed, arguments weren't passed, that's right. We're going to set the icon location, which is 0. An icon wasn't passed, and then we pass the shell link back. Okay, so we've got our shell link here. That is a thing, and the RV, we shouldn't have failed, so we're going to add the object. P-array, we're going to query interface the collection. We're going to see what kind of category we're adding. It's tasks, we're going to add the user tasks. Did that fail? It failed. Adding the user tasks failed. And so we're going to have to figure out why that is next week. We tried to add our user tasks, but it didn't like it. And we might need to like go through some logging to figure out because this is like the Win32 stuff. Like, we called into this COM thing to add user tasks, and it didn't like it. We need to figure out why. And that might involve looking through the error logs of like the Windows systems and stuff. So we can try doing that next week. But we're making progress, people. It didn't crash, at least. It just returned an exception, which is what you want. That's kind of what you want. It'd be nice if it was a little more forthcoming, but hey, I'll take it. So let's shut this down. I'm going to do this. I'm going to save what we've got. I'm going to commit it. And I'm going to thank you for watching episode 311 of The Joy of Coding. I hope that was interesting. We got somewhere, you know? I feel like we've been on the edge, the very edge of getting this thing to show stuff. And we're so close. Next week we can investigate why the exception is being thrown from Windows. And we'll figure it out. Thanks again for watching episode 311 of The Joy of Coding. Let me know what you thought. You can send me messages, or you can like rate the episode. Here in the agenda, there's this rate this episode link. Go ahead and click on that. Fill out the form. It's really easy peasy. You can send me questions. I'll try and answer them like I did this one. And I will see you next week. Have yourselves a great week, everybody. Let me just transition to this screen. Hey, it's great. It's great. 2023. It's going to be a great year. Let's get in there. Have yourselves a great week. I'll talk to you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.
The joy of coding.
See ya.